Hey guys! Decided to do it outside today since it was such a beautiful day, but I'm not quite sure if you can see this very well, but we're going to try for it. So, chapter 5 is called Fairy Sitting. Pearl Petal had a fairy in her room. Her dream had come true. Woohoo! Pearl was so excited she jumped on her bed for 10 whole minutes. This is so amazing! The fairy sat at the bottom of the salt shaker on the dresser watching Pearl go up and down. After a few more jumps, Pearl sprang up off the end of the mattress and landed on the carpet. Then she grabbed a magnifying glass. Luckily, the dollar store carried the plastic lenses. After saying goodbye to Ben, who was off to help his grandfather at the senior center, Pearl had snatched one from aisle 3. And she'd managed to hide the salt shaker from her parents, sneaking it upstairs to her bedroom. "I'll be down soon to do my chores," she called to her mom and dad. "Okay," Mr. Petal had called from the front picture window, where he and Mrs. Petal were creating a new window display of plastic picnic supplies. Because she didn't have to worry about being interrupted, Pearl could finally take a longer look at the little creature. Holding the magnifying glass next to the shaker, she examined her catch. The fairy sat cross-legged with her wings folded and a big frown on her face. "Can you understand me?" Pearl asked. The fairy nodded. "Please don't be mad," Pearl said. "I need to keep you safe until Dr. Wu gets back. Everyone at the diner wanted to squish you, and Miss B wanted to pin you to a board in her classroom." The fairy stuck out her tongue. Sheesh! There was just no pleasing some people. The fairy was almost exactly like the drawings Pearl had seen in storybooks. Her dress was made of tiny yellow flowers. Her shoes had been cut from shiny green leaves, and her crown had been woven from silver sticks and red berries. "I like your green hair," Pearl told her. "Mine turned green last summer because there was a lot of chlorine in the public pool. It's closed now. If you want to go swimming around here, you have to use the plastic pool at the senior center." The fairy drummed her fingers as if bored. Pearl decided to change the subject. "Why were you flying around the diner?" The fairy opened her mouth, and a stream of squeaks rose from the salt shaker's holes. "I'm sorry," Pearl told her. "I can't understand you. Maybe I should just ask you yes or no questions. Did you come to Buttonville to see Dr. Wu?" The fairy nodded. "Are you sick?" The fairy shook her head. Pearl let out a big sigh of relief. That was excellent news. "But why would you come to see the doctor if you aren't sick?" "Oops, that's not a yes or no question." Pearl fidgeted. "Are you hungry?" The fairy jumped to her tiny feet. Pearl knew that the fairy liked pancakes with syrup. So, salt shaker in hand, she opened her bedroom door and crept to the kitchen. The coast was clear. Her parents were still working downstairs. Pearl grabbed a frozen waffle and popped it into the toaster. The fairy watched. When the waffle was golden brown, Pearl poured syrup on it and cut off a tiny piece. Carefully, she began to unscrew the salt shaker's lids, intending to quickly slip the morsel inside. But as soon as the lid was loose, the fairy's wings unfurled. She zipped to the top of the shaker and began pushing. "Hey!" Pearl said. "Stop that!" Pearl quickly screwed the lid back into place. Phew! Close call. The fairy hovered inside the shaker, pointing at the syrup bottle. "You want syrup?" The fairy nodded. Pearl tipped the bottle over the salt shaker. A droplet oozed through a hole and landed on the salt shaker's floor. The fairy knelt and lapped it up like a cat. When she finished, Pearl squeezed another droplet, which was also quickly eaten. "Wow, she sure likes sugar," Pearl realized. "You thirsty?" The fairy nodded again. In went a couple drops of orange soda, followed by a drop of honey. Pearl wondered if the glass bottle would get sticky, but the fairy ate every last bit. The glass was so clean it sparkled. When the fairy curled into a ball and Then the fairy curled into a ball and closed her eyes. Pearl put her ear to the salt shaker's holes. She could barely hear the soft snoring sounds. Perfect timing, she thought. I've got chores to do. Even though the fairy was deep asleep, maybe in a sugar-induced stupor, Pearl wondered if she was comfortable. Glass jars were not the best material for a bed. So Pearl got 2 squares of double-ply toilet paper, carefully opened the lid, and dropped them in. Those should make nice blankets. After replacing the lid, she hid the shaker in her bedroom closet, then hurried downstairs to help her parents with the window display. Before, during, and after dinner, Pearl made sure to check on the fairy, who had rolled herself up in the toilet paper like a caterpillar in a cocoon. As soon as Mom and Dad go to sleep, I'll feed you again, Pearl whispered. Pearl's bedtime was 9 p.m. She took her shower, brushed her teeth, and put on her blue pajamas. Then she slipped under her quilt. I'm ready, she hollered. So here's the picture of the fairy eating all that sugar. But it's only 8:30, Mrs. Petal said. Are you sick? No, I'm just tired. In an attempt to be convincing, Pearl forced a yawn. Maybe we should all go to bed early. What do you think? The sooner her parents went to bed, the sooner she could talk to the fairy. While Pearl couldn't understand the fairy's squeaks, she could at least ask questions that required a nod or a shake of the fairy's head. And Pearl, being a girl who loved to ask questions, had a lot of them stacking up. She yawned again. Good night. Come to think of it, you did work hard on your window display, Mr. Petal said. It makes sense that you're extra tired. Mr. and Mrs. Petal tucked Pearl in and kissed her good night. But they didn't go to bed. Instead, they cleaned the kitchen, watched TV, and sat at the table paying bills. Pearl stared at the closet door. She didn't dare bring out the fairy. Her mom often checked throughout the night to make sure Pearl wasn't reading by flashlight or leaning out the window counting stars. It wasn't until 10:30 that she heard their bedroom door shut and their light flick off. Finally! Pearl threw the quilt aside. To avoid squeaky floorboards, she reached under her bed and grabbed her special pink slippers. Okay, so I want you to be thinking. So if Pearl went to bed at 8:30 and she couldn't take the fairy out until 10:30, how long did she have to wait? From 8:30 to 10:30. How long is that? 2 hours. Good job. Pearl threw the quilt aside. To avoid squeaky floorboards, she reached under her bed and grabbed her special pink slippers, a gift from Cobblestone, a leprechaun she'd met at Dr. Wu's. They gave her the ability to walk in silence. She put them on, then made her way across her bedroom as quiet as a ghost. Tap, tap, tap. Pearl stopped dead in her tracks. A huge face was peering through her bedroom window. Who do you think that huge face would be? Remember, she lives on the 2nd floor of the dollar store. Red eyes glowed like fire pits. Steamy breath fogged up the glass pane. Pearl slid the window open. Metal Mouth? She whispered. What are you doing here? Hiya, Pearl, Metal Mouth said in his rumbly dragon voice. He was standing on the roof of her building, but he'd stretched his long neck to reach her window. So here's Metal Mouth. Shh, she scolded. Mom and Dad are asleep. His ears flattened. Sorry. He wasn't very good at being quiet. Dragon voices weren't designed for libraries or midnight activities. You shouldn't be here. Someone might see you. No one's gonna see me. I'm the same color as night. He stuck his head into the bedroom. So much steam wafted from his nostrils that Pearl's room started to feel like a sauna. Do you want to play fetch? He spat a yellow tennis ball into the carpet. The ball glistened with spit. Playing fetch was one of Metalmouth's favorite activities, along with welding metal into pieces of art. But there was no time to do either of those things. Pearl glanced nervously at her door. If her parents saw the fairy, she could easily pretend it was some sort of bug, but there'd be no way to pretend that a dragon was anything but a dragon. Metalmouth, did Dr. Wu read my note? Does she know I found a fairy? Yep, she knows. That's why I'm here. Metalmouth scratched his chin on one of Pearl's bedposts. Dr. Wu wants to see you right now, and the fairy too. His ears flattened again. I don't like fairies. They bite. It was funny to think that a creature as big as a dragon could be afraid of an itty-bitty fairy. But Metalmouth wasn't your usual storybook dragon. Did you say right now? Uh-huh. I already got Ben. You got Ben? He's on the roof. How'd he... Pearl narrowed her eyes. The dollar store building was 2 stories high, plus a basement. But there was no fire escape ladder. If Ben hadn't climbed to the roof, then that meant... You flew him up there? Sure I did, and I'll fly you to the hospital if you want. Or you can walk, but Dr. Wu said you gotta come now. His tongue darted out and grabbed the tennis ball. Fly or walk? What would you guys do? Would you fly or walk? Why had he even bothered to ask such a ridiculous question? Pearl walked every single day of her life. Forget that. She could sneak out, but if she did and her parents woke up and looked for her, they'd panic, and she'd get into the biggest trouble ever. I can't leave without telling my mom and dad. Give me a few minutes, then I'll meet you on the roof. As she hurried down the hall, she had no idea what she'd say. Too bad she didn't have time to talk to Ben. He was way better at making up stories. She knocked on the door, then opened it. Hey, Mom, Dad, you still awake? Mrs. Petal bolted upright and flicked on the bedside lamp. What's going on? Are we having an earthquake? Mr. Petal, who wore earplugs to bed, kept snoring. Pearl fidgeted in the doorway. Dr. Wu just called. She needs my help. Mrs. Petal glanced at the clock. At this hour? But it's in the middle of the night. It's an emergency. A bunch of worms are sick. They have She watched Ben tell some weird stories, but no matter how crazy the story sounded, Ben always acted as if it made total sense. It's a worm disease, and it's called ringworm. Yep, they've got ringworm. That's odd, Mrs. Petal said, rubbing her eyes. I thought ringworm was something that people got. Well, worms get it too. And if it's not treated, it could spread to all the worms in Buttonville, and that would be a disaster of epic proportions, Pearl said with a dramatic sweep of her arms. So I'm going to have to help, okay? Because I'm her apprentice and she needs me. I don't want you walking in the dark alone, Mrs. Petal said. I won't be alone. Ben and Dr. Wu's assistant are waiting for me. Metalmouth was kind of like an assistant, she figured. All right, I guess it's okay as long as you go with them. I'm very proud of you for being so dedicated to your job. She blew Pearl a kiss, yawned, then turned out the light. So how many of your parents would let you go out in the middle of the night to Dr. Wu's worm hospital? Back in her room, Pearl opened the closet and grabbed the salt shaker. The fairy popped her head out of the toilet paper cocoon and started yelling again. Even after a nice sleep, she was still cranky. Calm down, Pearl told her. I'm taking you to Dr. Wu. And guess what? The fairy fell silent. Pearl smiled. We get to go by dragon. Chapter 6 is called The Red Eye Flight. All right, we'll see you guys tomorrow.